Welcome to the second deep dive training of the new application Creative Design Experience. Today we will focus on how to create a wheel car shape from an image. But before following this session, it is necessary to have followed the application technical discovery and the first deep dive session. I will use a lot of shortcuts during this session. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to switch between vertex, edge, face, auto, and object. C for add loop, F for face extrusion, E for edge extrusion, Alt to activate the propagation during a selection, Alt to translate or scale following a plane during the transformation. Now, let's go to the session with the first step, import an image in Creative Design Experience. Start by launching the import command in the action bar. A cube appears, just drag and drop your image from the Explorer in the view you want, and your image is in the 3D. I switch to the orthogonal view thanks to the VNav, and start to replace the image by translating following the XZ plan. The goal is to have the center of the wheel close to the center of the part. As I am not sure of the dimension, I decide to edit the image, control the diameter value, and by clicking on the dimension, change it to the good one. Now the wheel has the good size, I finalize to position it. I rename the layer to image by clicking on the name of the layer, and I lock it. I create a new layer called rim to create the rim part. I start from an advanced primitive, click and drag to create the circle based on the radius. By clicking the inner of the circle, we are able to modify the thickness of the tube. Change the point of view. Click on the manipulator on the center of the circle to change the height of this advanced primitive. By clicking on the thickness of the tube, I change the number of sections. As I don't need the whole tube, I decide to keep only a part of the cycle by editing the value reference and aperture directly in the object panel. To give some relief, I add a section with the add loop command by pushing C key. Select the inner faces thanks to the propagation by pushing Alt key during the my selection. Enter in the customize manipulator axis in the ribbon. Place my axis where I want, leave the customize command, and thanks to the scale command following XZ plan by pushing the Alt key, I move my faces with the good direction. I create a new layer, rename it spokes, and lock rim layer. It's time to create the spoke by using the box primitive in the action bar, and by drag and drop, I give a first size to the shape. I switch to translate by using T key, switch to vertex mode by pressing the 1 key, and start to move following the plane XZ. I activate the face extrusion command by pushing F key and extrude the button face, switch temporarily in the translate state while holding down the T key. When I'm done with the translate, I release the T key and go back directly in the face extrusion command to do another extrusion on the top of the shape. I switch to translate in vertex mode to move some vertices following the XZ plan. I create a new face extrusion, switch quickly in translate, and choose vertex mode to move the vertices newly created to prepare my mesh to follow the center cap. As I need something more angular, with a little radius, I use add loop by pressing C key to insert a loop and select each edge on both sides and use the 3D manipulator to tighten the edges and reduce the size of the transition radius. I add another loop to prepare a future extrusion. To simplify a little bit the model, I erase faces simply by selecting them and pushing the Del key on the keyboard. I create a new face extrusion to start to follow the center cap and lug holes. Translate with the new gesture-based robot is really fast. Just give the direction of the axis you want to follow thanks to your mouse. And if you want move following a plan, press the Alt key during this translation. As I don't need to enter in a specific tool to delete some faces, in the Transform tool, switch to faces, select the two faces I want to delete, and simply press on Delete key. Now I switch in Edge Extrusion by pressing E key, select directly the edges I want to extrude, use the manipulator to modify the length of the extrusion, switch to Translate by pressing T key, move some vertices, and switch to Face mode to erase some not needed faces. I decide to modify the depth of the spoke by translating the selected faces thanks to the trap selection. As my rim is locked, I have no risk to select other faces than that of my spoke. Now it's time to create the bezel on each side. I press C to add a new loop of edges, switch to Translate, activate the faces using From to Propagation mode in the App Option bar, and activate this mode with Alt during my selection. I move these faces following the XZ plan. I activate the vertex mode to finalize the positioning of the vertices to be as close as possible of the intention of the designer. I do the same for the other side. And use the Shift key to align a vertex to another following an axis. I press F to go to face extrusion and extrude a face. I use the 3D manipulator to modify the length of the extrusion, but no need to move the face. I go back to the extrusion face, but it's not what I want here. I decide to go in the drop-down menu in the ribbon and select Fill. I select the first face, and with the Control key, I add other faces to fill this part. It is time to move some vertices and delete faces. By using From to Propagation with Alt and adding other vertices, I have access to the... By using From to Propagation already set in the App Option bar with Alt and adding other edges, I have access in the Transform command to the weight of the edges in the current operation panel just above the object panel. I change the value by dragging to 100 and change to smooth edges. To create the bevel on the bottom of the lug holes, I use the Insert loop and move different vertices. I need to move and align some vertices. To align the vertices on another, I start to move a vertex in the direction I want. And to align, I press Shift key and point with my mouse the targeted vertex. I am not really satisfied by the flow of my vertices around the center cap. I decide to break a little the upper part of the spoke by deleting some two faces. It's time to rebuild this part with some traditional operation with add loop, move vertices following a plan, I also use the fill edge to add a face between 3 or 2 free edges. And I want to control my flow. I prefer to fill progressively one by one. When I am satisfied by the flow, I can continue to use the edge extrusion to create a little flat part and the bezel part around the center cap. I finish the creation of this part of the spoke by moving some vertices to go through the rim shape. Now I am satisfied. It's time to mirror it. Thanks to the mirror modifier, I change the plane for the mirror, and just after, I add the pattern effect, choosing the Y plane, change the coordinate in the panel to 0, 0, 0 to be sure to be at the center of the shape, and put the number of repetition to 5. I adjust the mesh by moving some vertices of the original face to a better result and a better junction. All modifier is updated in real time. Time to add the rim part to the Boolean modifier, always in the modifier panel. I do not have the good result because I did not change the operation type before selecting the rim part. It's not a problem, I can modify it directly in the modifier panel. Time to add a bevel on the row of sharp edges. I launch the bevel modifier, select a row of edges thanks to the propagation. I change the value by dragging on the value. The result is not what I expect, because I forgot to delete some faces capping the spoke. I decide to delete the bevel and not needed faces. I could also have simply deleted all non-necessary faces. I could also have simply deleted all non-necessary faces and the bevel would have been updated. I can now rebuild my bevel. I also change the weight of edges behind the spoke and the last row in the front of the spoke. Is just to have a totally smooth. I go back to the Boolean and change the value of the fillet, and the fillet appears on all instances created by all visual modifiers. I adjust a little bit my rim part to have more tension on the bezel of the rim. To finish, I switch into translate mode, move some vertices and give more volume to the spoke. All instances are also updated in real time. That's all for this session. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.